Only in Kentucky can one county be home to a literary legend who spent 50 years writing about a fictional town and then also have a high society resort where a fatal shooting was legally ruled an act of brotherly love. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Henry County. We've officially covered more than 50 Kentucky counties, and I wanted to pause for a second and just say thank you. The last 10 months without steady full-time work hasn't been easy, but this project has brought me a lot of joy. And while I like to think I might enjoy learning even without an audience, I truly appreciate you guys being here. I also want to be a little transparent. Your views have made things a little more manageable as I navigate some financial stressors, especially with some recent car trouble and some medical bills for my 13-year-old border collie, Riley. He's a good boy. I've had him since he was a puppy, so watching him deal with some health issues has been difficult. I want to let you know that when you watch these videos for more than 5 minutes, TikTok actually compensates me, which is insane. But I want you to know that I'm using that money directly to improve Riley's health right now. I generally hate talking about the financial side of things, and I know this isn't the first time that I've actually done that, but I want you to know that your time here has a direct, tangible impact on our lives. So, thank you for helping us reach this milestone. It really does mean the world. Anyway, long intro. I'll skip the usual preamble and just get straight to it. Thanks for watching. The story of Henry County doesn't start with a map. It starts with a move towards freedom. In 1784, before Kentucky was even a state, a group of 30 Dutch families arrived here. They were colonizing the frontier and purchased 10,000 acres of land from Squire Boone, the brother of Daniel Boone. These early settlers established what became known as the Low Dutch Station, or the Dutch Tract. They lived and farmed the land in common under the leadership of Abram Banta. They built a fort for protection about 1.5 miles from what is now Pleasureville, creating a sanctuary for families who were often displaced by the shifting borders of the Revolutionary era. The county itself was officially carved out of Shelby County in December of 1798. This happened during an incredible 11-day sprint where the Kentucky General Assembly created 12 different counties. Henry was the 31st county formed in the state and was named for the Virginia patriot Patrick Henry. At the time, the county's borders were pretty massive, reaching all the way to the Ohio River. Over the next few decades, as more people arrived, the riverfront was chipped away to form Oldham, Trimble, and Carroll counties. By 1838, Henry had lost its last bit of land on the Ohio River, settling into the inland, rolling hills of the Kentucky River Valley that we know today. In the mid-1800s, the county became a destination for the wealthy and the weary. Drennan Springs became known as the Saratoga of the West. It was a world-class resort built around mineral springs that people believed to have had healing powers. Talked about similar ones before, but thousands of visitors would flock to this massive hotel to escape the summer heat of the cities as well. But life at the resort wasn't exactly a holiday, or at least it wasn't always. In May 1851, the springs were the site of a tragic accident. A young student at the Western Military Institute was killed by a fowling piece held by his best friend. The local coroner had to impanel a jury of good and lawful men to investigate. The jury eventually ruled it a purely unintentional accident, noting that the unbroken tie of brotherly affection between the two young men. It's a sobering reminder that even in the place of leisure, the frontier could be unforgiving. Eventually, the school moved away and the resort era faded, leaving only the springs and the stories behind. Kind of sounds like the excuse of boys will be boys, but what do I know? As the towns began to take shape, the names they chose became local legends. Take Pleasureville, for example. One story says it was named by a politician named Major Joe LeCompte, who said that every time he passed through, the men were whistling and the women were singing. However, some say the post office sat near a well-known brothel, and the pleasure in the name was a bit more literal. In 1858, when the Louisville and Nashville Railroad arrived, it missed Pleasureville by about 1 mile. A new settlement grew around the depot, creating a divide that lasted a century. Locals still refer to Northtown and Southtown, a remnant of the time when the post office moved to follow the tracks, leaving the original community to be called North Pleasureville. They didn't officially merge back together into one city until 1962. And then you have Eminence, which is the largest city in the county. It was established at the highest point on the railroad line between Louisville and Lexington. And because it was the peak of the climb, it became a vital shipping hub. Today, it's still an industrial engine, home to eminent speaker, one of the most famous loudspeaker manufacturers in the world. The county seat is Newcastle, incorporated in 1817. It's a town built on limestone and history, because during the Civil War, the county tried to remain neutral, but the conflict came regardless. In 1864, the 54th Kentucky Infantry was organized right in Newcastle, spending months patrolling the hills to protect residents from guerrilla raiders. One of the more impressive homes from this era is the Samuel Hyatt House, built in 1850. Hyatt, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was a prosperous farmer who famously managed to keep his neutrality while the war raged around him, often housing soldiers from both the Union and the Confederacy right there at his farm. But if we're talking about the soul of Henry County, we have to talk about a man who has spent a lifetime defending it, Wendell Berry. Born in Newcastle in 1934, Berry is a world-renowned author, farmer, and activist. He and his wife moved to their farm, Lane's Landing, in 1965. Berry has written dozens of books that have defined the modern agrarian movement. He created this fictional town called Port William, which is a thinly veiled version of his home, Port Royal. And through his stories, he introduced the world to the idea of membership. And it's the idea that people, the land, and the animals are all bound together in responsibility to care for one another. And given the context of my own personal life that I shared a little bit ago, the idea of the membership has been on my mind lately. So it is appropriate to be talking about right now to me. His activism is just as legendary as his prose. In 2009, he famously pulled his personal papers from the University of Kentucky because of the school's ties to the coal industry. He told the world that if they loved coal that much, he had to cancel his friendship with the university. In 2011, he even spent a weekend locked in the governor's office to protest mountaintop removal mining. Today, his family continues that legacy through the Berry Center in Newcastle. They work to transition our industrial food system back into a culture that takes the health of the land and the community into account. It's a movement that has turned this small Kentucky county into really a global beacon for sustainable living. Now, on the other side of the county, you'll find a place that feels like it's frozen in time. Bethlehem was originally known as Mobley's Stand, but the name was changed to honor the birthplace of Jesus Christ. Every December, this tiny community in Henry County becomes a massive attraction. Since the 1960s, Bethlehem has hosted a living nativity every Christmas. People from all over the state and beyond bring holiday cards to the local post office just to get the unique Bethlehem postmark. It's been featured on national news publications and television shows, proving that even the smallest community can have a global reach. The modern era has brought its own challenges. In 1974, a devastating tornado ripped through Campbellsburg, destroying much of the downtown area. The community had to rebuild it from the ground up, showing the same resilience that the early Low Dutch settlers once did. Today, Henry County has a population of just almost 16,000 people, according to the 2020 census at least. That's about 54 people per square mile, reflecting its identity as a rural sanctuary that is increasingly becoming an exurb of Louisville. As Louisville grows, land prices in neighboring Oldham County have soared, pushing more people into the rolling hills of Henry County. And this growth has sparked new dramas like the controversial 2025 ambulance contract shift and recent petitions against proposed data centers. The county is also navigating the arrival of the modern bourbon boom. Angel's Envy and other major distilleries are expanding their warehouse footprints. In 2022, Wendell Berry even spoke at a public hearing against rezoning agricultural land for bourbon tourism. He argued that good farmland shouldn't be sacrificed for barrel storage. Despite the debates over development, the county keeps its spirit alive through traditions like the Henry County Fair and the Harvest Showcase. You can visit the Highlands Renaissance Festival in Eminence during the summer, or walk through the quiet, haunted remains of the ghost town of Lockport, which was once a bustling steamboat port where they used to drill for oil in the 1920s. So, that's Henry County. What'd I get wrong this time?